Welcome to Florida Gators Live 12. This is a pretty fun show. We're going to have our end of season superlatives. Really fun thing. I mean, like, you have awards and stuff for the NFL. Like, you have your MVPs, you have your Heisman trophies. It's everyone tunes in to watch those, see what their favorite players won. But we're going to do it just for our team. We're going to be talking about the OC talk. I'm hearing that we might hire an OC. What will that do for us? We don't really know who it's going to be. But if we hire an OC, how will that benefit us? How might it hurt us? And we're also going to talk some basketball. I mean, the basketball team is hot. I mean, just beat Stetson by 40 points. It kind of felt like they underperformed in this game. But, I mean, can't complain about a 40-point win at all.
Did cover the spread.
Yep. How was your Christmas, Tyler?
It was pretty good, man. I'm still up in South Carolina through the New Year's with some family, just spending some quality time. It's been nice. How about yours?
Yeah, it was pretty good. We got Dallas Wilson for the Gators and everything. Basketball team got a win. Got some other stuff. So, yeah, pretty good Christmas. I'm ready to talk some football. Are you?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, I'll let you start off here first with what do you think an OC can do for the Gators in this season? Obviously, we saw Billy's been our play caller mostly for the first 3 seasons of his tenure, but it kind of feels like it's time for him to move on. So what do you think we can see with a new OC?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of a broken record here. Like, I've been beating this drum for a while. I feel like, just straight up, I don't think Florida offensively, from a schematic perspective, is where it needs to be competing at the level that we expect this program to be competing at in year 4 under Billy Napier. I think we've seen Billy's off. I mean, like, look, it's not like it's all bad. Like, and we've given him props on this show before. He's a good run designer. He designs good run plays. He designs good run blocking schemes, and it's effective. But I think my main thing here is that you've got a quarterback in DJ Lagway who could be really special. And he's not really as good as he is. He's not really the prototypical quarterback for the offense that Billy likes to run. I mean, at least that's what I would say, because I mean, when I look at Levi Lewis, I believe was the quarterback from Louisiana under him. Like, Levi was a mobile quarterback, and they really designed that into the game a lot. That's not really Lagway's game. Lagway's going to be slinging the ball. And I don't know, especially with the talent that Florida has out wide. When you look at Dallas Wilson, when you look at Vernell Brown coming in, and obviously Trey Wilson, Aiden Mizell coming back, started in the portal. Yeah, like, you've got some really special talent out wide. I don't think Billy's equipped to draw up a passing game that can take advantage of all those pieces that you have with a young quarterback. Like, I'm not saying it can't be a successful offense with Billy calling the plays next year, but I can pretty confidently say you're not going to be optimizing this offense if Billy's calling plays next year.
I do wonder, though, how much of that is him not being able to do it, or how much of it is the lack of talent depth. Because, I mean, you look at the past, 3 seasons? Under Billy. Year 1, really, he had Ricky Pearsall and Justin Shorter. That was really it. I mean, then year 2, it's really Ricky Pearsall and Trey Wilson. Because, then the guys behind him are, Elijah, or not Elijah Better, but are Khalil Jackson or Marcus Burke and Jaquavian Frazier's. Like, do you really want to run 4 wide with them? Or is there a point where you just put the tight end in, and so, you have a decent tight end maybe, and who can also block better than the wide receiver could, in theory, that is. And then this year, we had Badger and DK, but then after those 2, we didn't even have Trey this year. You had some freshmen, but, don't know how much you want to put on the freshman. Mizell's good, but it's his first year really getting playing time. So how much do you really trust him? And then again, after him, Khalil Jackson was even hurt. And then it was Frazier's and Burke after them. And then the tight end position also took a toll. But you probably trust them to block more than you would trust Frazier's or Burke, as I keep saying.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point. I think that's a fair point. I don't think. I mean, yeah, that's kind of. I agree with that, Rob. That's kind of where I'm at here. I just haven't seen from Billy, between his stints as an OC at Clemson and Arizona State and his stints as a play caller as a head coach at Louisiana and here. I haven't seen the proof of concept, and I don't doubt that Billy's offense can improve. I don't think we've seen the finished product of Billy's offense. I don't believe that. I just think that he is not such a singularly good offensive play caller that we couldn't delegate that out to someone who is going to do a better job taking advantage of what Lagway can do. I mean, like, even we saw it looked like this year there was some sort of concession in that regard, giving Russ Callaway the co-OC title, Callaway coming from an air raid tree, certainly a philosophically different guy to what Billy wants to do with, 12 personnel, 3 yards, cloud of dust. That's kind of been Billy's whole philosophy this whole time and how he wants to build this program. I don't know if you're going to see like a big shift. I mean, I think I'd like to see them run some more of like spread concepts. I'm not sure you're going to see Billy do something like that, even if he does hire an OC. I don't know, but
yeah, you also got to wonder like how much has the quarterback position been limited in Billy's tenure here. Year one, Anthony Richardson, who was as inconsistent as it gets. I mean, one game he had 400 yards, and the next he would throw 3 interceptions or 2 interceptions, and then Graham Mertz couldn't throw deep balls. So it's like you're kind of just limited to those short yardage plays, kind of. But then Lagway, I think we saw a little bit, like at times of everything, throwing it short a little bit against Ole Miss and FSU. But then he was also dealing with that hamstring. But a lot of it was just big, deep bombs. So I feel like we did see a little bit of that mixture of short, deep. And it's like once Lagway gets healthy, sorry. He does have some. Lagway is a mobile quarterback. It's not like Lagway's Graham Mertz was honestly probably an underrated runner. He was a strong, willing runner. Like he wasn't the quickest guy, but he knew when to run. It's like, and Lagway is probably a better runner is definitely better than runner than Mertz ever was.
Yeah.
So it's like if you can teach Lagway to do that, maybe he helps the short game, maybe he helps the deep game. Also, you also got to think about the running backs. We have a really good running back room. Jaden Ball was a true freshman. We might talk about him later on. 600 yards this year and 10 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. Jacoby Jackson, another running back. I don't think any of us knew much about coming into the year. A JUCO transfer. He ends up going for over 500 yards and like 11 touchdowns as well. Sometimes you have to sacrifice that pass game scheme, especially when your quarterback is limited. So I wonder if Lagway is like the best quarterback in the country next year, if that does change Billy's play calling, if he is the play caller.
Yeah, like that's a fair point. I think I'm sorry. I think like my concern is that I think that it's not because you're right. We saw like when Lagway came in, they were hitting explosive plays at a much higher rate. Lagway's just better at finding those guys and making those plays. He has the arm talent to do that. I still think even with the offense looking its best with Lagway playing late in the year, there was still just a lot of relying on kind of, I don't want to call it luck, but I think there is an element of luck to those big explosive plays. And I'm not sure that like the intermediate passing game, like I don't know if Billy's shown that on film that he's like really got that well developed. And people are, like Billy will be the play caller next year. Like, honestly, like there's still a really good chance that that's what happens. There's been some smoke about hiring an OC. But it would surprise me like to see after the way the team ended winning its last 4 games. I'm not sure Billy Napier took that as like a condemnation of his play calling. Like I think he probably took it as a vindication, if anything else. So like I don't even disagree, Ultra Gator. Like I think that's definitely possible.
Well, we do know that the bunch of staff contracts end on the 31st going into the new year. So that's probably when we'll start seeing these new coordinator hires or position hires and everything. So I've heard it could go either way with the play caller, with an OC. One thing I think that's the problem with Billy's offense isn't necessarily the plays. It's kind of the rhythm. It's like if you're watching a TV show. It's like, have you watched The Walking Dead?
Handful of episodes.
It's like really the biggest problem with The Walking Dead was like in the middle to end of the show, they would separate things by episode and like each story gets an episode to where it's like if one of the stories is like boring, it kind of just slows things down.
Yeah.
But there's a point in season 6 where it's a 10-year-old. I'm just going to spoil it. Where one of the best characters, Glenn, like people think he dies. And then the next episode, they show Morgan where he's like learning new stuff and everything in an episode. That's actually a really good episode, But because they wanted to see what happened with Glenn, that people kind of hate on the episode, even though the play itself can be good, but the rhythm of it is not like it doesn't work out. Like one thing I think Billy does is he kind of overthinks plays. Or like when Adam Warner came on after Lagway got hurt, it's like, okay, everyone's thinking like it's probably guaranteed to run the ball. And it's like Billy's just like, okay, I'm gonna throw him off. I'm gonna pass it with Warner more.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, don't do that. Like you probably should run the ball more because you do have that backup QB or that third string QB in. Or we get stopped on a 1st and 10 and it's like a 2nd and long. It's like, okay, everyone's probably expecting pass. Let me run it. I feel like he does that way too often.
Yeah.
And it just backfires. When he probably should just kind of maybe simplify the offense. So it's like maybe individually that's not a horrible play call. Like it's not something that's going to make you be like you should be fired. But then when you add them all together, it just ends up being something that people don't really want.
I also do think it's worse situationally, kind of going off what you said. Like it's worse situationally than it is down to down.
Yep.
Florida has, I think Florida had a decent amount of success, like, just moving the ball down the field, running. It's just, they struggle on 3rd downs a lot of the times. They struggle in the red zone and they waste opportunities. And like, I don't think you can separate those two things though, because I think a big, an important aspect of play calling is situational play calling, so
absolutely.
I like, that's kind of where I'm just hung up. Like, and I don't doubt that those things will just probably be better next year, regardless of who's the play caller, because of the personnel, because you're returning a lot on the offensive line, because you've got talent at the running back position, Lagway with another offseason under his belt, like all these things, you would think be conducive to like a more dynamic and like a unit that's more gelled together than what we saw this year. I think that someone else could be getting more out of this talent, because I think it has the talent to be one of the best offenses in the country, like truly.
Yeah, and not even just the offense. If Billy finally gives someone else the keys to the offense, he can worry about the other things like time management, special teams, how many players are on the field, like those small mistakes that have cost us in big situations. Like maybe that cost us maybe the Tennessee game. I mean, we had a couple of those time management issues against Tulane. So it's not even just the play calling itself. It's other smaller things that giving someone else handing over the offense to will help fix.
And it would also like say to me just a lot about Billy personally, because obviously he doesn't want to give up play calling. Obviously he enjoys calling plays. So I think it would tell me a lot about him if he was willing to give that up because he thought it would make the team better.
Yeah, but keep it trucking said. Talent should get us into the playoffs. After that, we need elite coaching. I mean, it's way too. I mean, we're going to do a way too early predictions for 2025. So it's like I don't want to spoil too much there. Like I do think the talent on this team is good enough to make the playoffs this year. Like even without us finishing the portal cycle yet, because everyone else also hasn't finished the portal cycle. So
yeah,
I do think it's there, and I'd probably agree. Like in the playoffs, everyone who you play is likely going to have the talent, unless we play like an Indiana or Boise State or Arizona State. But so they're going to have the talent. So where you do need that coaching edge. His plays don't go off each other. So when he gets in a formation, everyone does the same thing, but sometimes he'll throw and sometimes he'll run. You can, if you want to say something on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, Florida's offense struggles to get in rhythm. I think kind of like you were saying, Tyler, like it just, it doesn't feel like Billy has a good feel for like what's working at any given time and like what is going to keep them on it, keep them on their toes. And like, I don't know. It's just, it's not that I think it's horrible. It's just that I look at what other teams are doing, what other like, young creative offensive coordinators are doing. And I'm just, I don't think Billy's so good at it that he should be occupying that much of his time when he's the head coach of the Florida Gators.
Absolutely. That's kind of where I always go to. It's like, maybe he's a solid play caller. I mean, he was solid at Arizona State. He was young at Clemson. Like, just there.
I'm sure he learned a lot from that experience. Like,
so it's like, it's not like he's a horrible play caller. There's definitely worse. But he's not elite enough to where, as the head coach, he needs to be calling plays. So that's kind of where I lean there. And I mean, I hope we do hire someone because I think there are some really good names out there that we could go after, like the Georgia Tech offensive coordinator. I think if that's someone who we are willing, if we are going to get an OC, he might be like one of the best we can possibly even get.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of good young minds out there that I think would be really interesting to target.
Yep. Hey, if you haven't already, make sure you guys like the stream, subscribe to the channel. Trying to build this up more and more. Send it out to all your friends. I mean, we have a really fun show here. We're about to talk some basketball. I mean, I'm wearing the Walter Clayton jersey right now. Well, you don't see the number, but whatever. I'm wearing the Walter Clayton jersey right now. We're about to talk some basketball. And really, it's a good time to be a Gator. I mean, football is on the up and up. Basketball is in the top 6 right now. I mean, the baseball team is every year one of the best in the country. I mean, then there's other sports you can go into. Florida's one of the best athletic schools in the country. So it really is a good time to be a Gator fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're going to get into bat and ball season here in a little bit and hopefully have another fun run there.
Yep. So can the Gator basketball team actually win the SEC in basketball? I'm not sure how to really clarify that, but we are 13-0 now, right? 13-0.
Yep.
Okay.
As
Just
of
got
today.
a 40 as of today, yeah, 13-0. Got a huge win over Stetson. Do have some other big wins like North Carolina, Arizona State. No one that really jumps off the paper as like, okay, they beat that team. Now I know they can really beat anyone in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So do you really think that this Florida team can win the SEC? Now, do we want to do tournament or just regular season? Because those are two different things.
I'd say regular season because
Regular season.
tournament is squirrely. A lot can go into that. I mean, as
Like
we saw
year.
last year, like Micah got hurt in the championship game. Like, you don't know.
We made the championship game,
Yeah.
As the
and we were 6th seed, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm conflicted on how to feel about the basketball team at this point. I mean, not conflicted, like obviously they're good and they've been really fun. I'm conflicted about how high my expectations are exactly.
Yep.
Because North Carolina, Arizona State, like good wins for sure, no doubt about it. Still haven't played a team that's like a national championship caliber team yet. So we just don't know. And we'll know in a week because they open SEC play with Kentucky and Tennessee. So see what happens in that. I mean, obviously you go 2-0 in that stretch. Like, heck yeah, they can win the
number
SEC.
one team in the country. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So I still think they can though, because I mean, I haven't watched other than maybe Auburn, which Auburn has kind of looked like a wagon. They look really good. But other than, I mean, I think even like Tennessee, I've seen, Tennessee, I feel like has had moments where they look a little shaky. Kentucky's had some shaky moments. Like, I mean, obviously, who'd they get blown out by?
Ohio State.
That's right. Not a very good Ohio State team. So, like,
I mean, they're getting blown out by
not an elite Ohio State team is what I'm saying. Like, not on the same caliber. So, I mean, all these teams look flawed. And I mean, maybe Florida, I'm sure Florida has some flaws that haven't really been tested yet, but like, there's not really a clear weakness here. There's not really a clear thing that I point to and I'm like, this is going to doom the team in March. Like maybe there, I could see things where like, if you have a bad day in some regard, maybe, but not like what you typically expect.
Beat Tennessee. I'll jump on the wagon. That game is sold out on next Tuesday. So not this coming Tuesday, 7:00. Sucks. It's a Tuesday game though. Wish I was on a Saturday or even a Sunday. And the Kentucky game is at 11 a.m. on Saturday, a week from yesterday. So that's going to be a big one. Honestly, I think the biggest threat to the Gators being a possible contender or winning the SEC, I think we are a contender, but winning it is the fact that Auburn has just looked insanely good.
Yeah.
I mean, top 5 schedule in the country, and they only have 1 loss, and it was at Duke.
On the road to Duke, yeah.
It was also a top 5 team in the country. Yeah. I mean, and then their other wins. It's not like they've beaten good teams, which they have. Like they've beat Iowa State and Kansas, I think. Like they've also,
I think so.
They've also blown out like everyone else they've played. We talked about Ohio State, who blew out Kentucky. They beat Ohio State by like 40 points.
Yeah.
I mean, anything can happen in a 1-game sample size. So it's like we can beat Auburn. I mean, at Neville though, I was looking at tickets to that game. Can you guess the cheapest ticket on Ticketmaster for that game?
To Auburn?
Florida at Auburn.
I mean, gotta be like over.
I'm gonna tell you it's more,
right?
I'm gonna tell you it's more. I knew it was gonna be more than your first guess. Way more.
Okay, so what's it like 250, 300?
$500.
Wow,
That's
that's
the
for
tickets
a
to that game.
basketball game. That's crazy,
Yep.
man. That is unreal.
I mean, have you seen those videos of like Auburn fans camping out week before the game and everything to get tickets? Like our students. I mean, Auburn's different. Like our game against Stetson was actually sold out today. I mean, it was sold out, but
There was some controversy with the student section. Did you hear about that?
No.
I don't want to like misrepresent anything. I just saw some people on Twitter that were like complaining because apparently like they were selling, like students couldn't get into the student section because they were selling student section tickets.
Oh, students
to,
are away. Yeah, the students are away on Christmas break, so they were selling the
yeah.
tickets.
But like it was like there was a student, like multiple students that like wanted to go and like couldn't even get into the student section. So like ones that were there, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know too much about that. I just saw some people saying that on Twitter. I didn't know if you saw anything about that.
Oh no, I was at I was at the game, but I did not see anything about that.
Gotcha.
But I mean, you talk about it. Where is the weakness on this team? I mean, you got good size, you got speed, so it's not just like you're too fast or you're too big, because they got a good little bit of everything. Like the biggest weakness probably is like turnovers. Which it feels like those turnovers kind of happen that when they're like, I don't want to say like they're not locked in, but you know, kind of they're just playing sloppy. It doesn't look like they're fully engaged. Like the Stetson game, a bit early on, they committed some turnovers. I mean, Walter Clayton, like you can tell he's kind of, you know, if Walter Clayton wanted to take over the Stetson game, he could have, but he kind of just took the game off a bit. I mean, you know, you never want to underestimate an opponent, but I mean, when you're a 38 or 39.5 point favorite against somebody, you can do that and be fine.
And I don't want to make it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No one was that dominant in the SEC. It's anybody's title next year, I think. I mean, it could be anyone's title. I mean, there's so many good teams. There's 10 top 25 teams in the current AP poll.
I mean, was he talking about football, or I thought he might have been talking about football?
He might be, which would make more sense, but. Yeah, we're talking basketball. Sorry. That's why I was a little confused on how to do this segment. Kind of want to confuse people if we're talking about football or basketball. We're talking about basketball here. But you were going to say something? Go ahead.
What was I going to say? I was just going to say, honestly, I lost my train of thought. We can you can keep going with what you're saying. I'll come back to it if I can think of it again.
Yeah, no, so I was talking like, where is the weakness on this team?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we saw when we faced a team like North Carolina, like we have really good guards for their size and speed. But like when you face a team like North Carolina, just has elite speed guards. Like they don't really do both well. They're just quick. Like we could get beat there, and we did against a good bit against North Carolina. Like that also is the fact that who has guards like R.J. Davis who hit crazy shots in that game.
Yeah,
you know, like you're looking at Mark Sears at Bama. He's someone even last year when we didn't really have the good defense we do now. I mean, we went 2-1 against Bama. We lost to them in overtime, or was it overtime or regulation?
One of those games went to overtime for sure.
No, I can't think it was regulation because we went to overtime with Kentucky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, Mark Sears, he's possibly one of those guys. I mean, Tennessee's offense, like, it's so inconsistent, I feel. I mean, you saw in their Virginia game earlier this year where they scored like 20 points in the first half. I mean, 67 points against Indiana. So it's like they could. Chaz Lanier is a player not as good as Dalton Connect, but he's in that role that Dalton Connect was as a main scorer. Like Vescovi's having a really good season. It's like, if you can shut down Tennessee's offense, I think we could win that game. And it's at home. So really, it's just a matter of, is Auburn really that dominant? I mean, we saw them lose to Duke, a really good team still. But like, if we're good as Duke, then we could definitely beat them. I mean,
yeah.
Or we could win the SEC. So sometimes things also just have to fall your way. Because like we can lose to Auburn, but then they have their rivalry against Bama. Like they lose to Bama, then slip up one other time. And I mean, it's going to be tough because I don't see us not losing at least 3 or 4 games. And that's like maybe best case scenario.
Yeah.
And I don't see Auburn losing more than 3 games in SEC play. So we basically have to play perfect.
Yeah, and going back to what you were saying about, like Tennessee being kind of consistent offensively and like kind of dovetails with what Rob said here, you got to score 90 to beat this Gators team. Like that's to me the most impressive thing about
Yep.
Florida is just how consistent they've been offensively. Like there has not really been an off night. Even when they're making mistakes, they still are productive. 12 of 13 wins in non-conference play came by double digits. That's unreal. So ultimately, like, it's just, you have to be so good. And so, like, you look at a guy like Mark Sears, like, maybe he is individually a guy that can have that kind of game and go off like that. But can he do that while Alabama as a whole scores enough to beat Florida? Like, I don't know.
Yep.
And I also remember what I was going to say, just talking about the turnovers, not to make excuses for it, but I do think like an element of that is just the style of play of this team. There's so much movement, so much passing. And if you're just not in sync, like that's probably going to lead to a higher rate of turnovers. You know what I mean?
Yep. So when you look back at the team, they've scored in the 13 games. They scored over 80 points in 12 of them, with the one game being against Wake Forest where we scored 75, which is also a game that we won by 17 points. I think we were up by like 20. And we had the backups in with like 5 minutes left. So that's a game. If there's a team that can hold Florida to under 80, with like Florida with Florida continuously trying to score, that might be the best defensive team in the country.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee can beat Florida if Florida scores over 80 points. Even if Florida scores 75, do you think Tennessee can win that game? I
think that's certainly any game where Florida scoring at least 75 or 80 there. It's shaping up to be a very good game for them.
Yeah. So, it's really just a matter of, like, does Auburn slip up enough? And do we not have any bad games? We lost to Vanderbilt last year in an SEC game. So, we can, it's not the same team, obviously, but like if you slip up in a game against Missouri, like none of these SEC teams are even bad. Like South Carolina, who we faced twice, I believe. We faced South Carolina twice. We could slip up at South Carolina. At Mississippi State's a really good team. So it's like, slip up. LSU. So it's a matter of avoiding those slip ups and then hoping that you outlast Auburn.
Yeah.
I just don't think Auburn's going to lose enough games, and I just don't know if we're that good yet.
And the defense is pretty good. It's not quite at the same level as what the offense is. I've also just had some games where teams shoot lights out against them. It's not really their fault. Giving up a lot of points, but
wow. Florida's defensive rating, it was like 21 a couple weeks ago. Guess what it is now? It's
Florida's like 12.
Yeah, 12. Exactly 12.
Wow. Nice.
Florida's defensive rating is 12. Offensive rating is 8th. Then you look at like other SEC teams. Auburn has the highest offensive rating in KenPom history right now. So they're obviously first. Defensive rating of 13th. Other SEC teams, Tennessee, offensive rating of 15, defense of 2. Bama, offensive rating of 6, defensive rating of 50th. Like that's where Bama really needs to improve if they want to win. And then Texas A&M, offensive rating of 41st, defensive rating of 6th. So I do think there's a path for Florida to win the SEC, but it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, there's just so many good teams. I think it's probably fair to assume you could go like 12-6 and still have be a top 15 team in the nation, like top 10 team in the nation, maybe even
12-6. As long as like one of those wins are against one of the top teams.
Yeah.
If we can beat a Tennessee or I think Kentucky's going to fall off a bit. So as long, I think we beat Kentucky. Like, is that Rupp? Like, but like if you be like one of those top 20, top like 15, top 10 teams in the SEC, and you go 12-6, you probably get that top 3-4 at the floor, maybe even a 2 seed, depending on how things go.
Yeah,
but you need one of those elite wins. If you remember last year, I think Florida was like the only team until that Vanderbilt game that didn't have a loss outside of the quad one.
Yeah,
and that Vanderbilt game ruined that. And that's why we ended up being a 7 seed instead of a 6 seed in last year's tournament. So just avoid those bad losses and get a big or a couple of big wins maybe, and you can get a 2 or 1 seed maybe.
Yeah, 100%. if you're I think there's a good chance that there's like 3 1 seeds from the SEC. Like, I don't think that's entirely out of the question.
I wouldn't say
maybe
good
not good chance. There's a very realistic chance.
Yeah, because if you're looking at the other teams, I mean, Duke is probably going to run wild on the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as they don't lose like more than 2 games in the ACC, even though they probably shouldn't be a 1 seed based on like their resume, they will be a 1 seed because like there's really good metrics and everything. And they are Duke. That's also a big contributor in that. But then you also have Iowa State, who looks really good. Although the Big 12, like, I'm not going to say it's going to fall off. It might be like the SEC in football this year, where like they still have like a really good teams, but they're not good enough to where they're not going to fall off to a decent team like a West Virginia or I was about to say Oklahoma, but they're not in the Big 12 anymore. Or a Houston. Like, they're not guaranteed to win those games. They might not be that good. So it's going to be interesting. But
the Big 12 looked like it was like so clearly going to be the most dominant basketball conference, but it's at least this year it's been surpassed by the SEC. We'll see if that's a trend. But
the bracketologist now has the Gators. So this is a net ranking. The Florida Gators are the 4 seed right now.
Yeah, I noticed that today. They got moved. They're up to 4. They're still at like 7 in Ken Palm, right? You said?
No, we're 6. Wait, are we 7? Wait.
We were 7 earlier today.
7, yeah. However, we've closed the gap. It was like a 3-point gap 2 weeks ago, and it's now less than half a point.
Yeah.
So we can jump into that top 6. Beat Kentucky, and I mean, really, if we beat Kentucky, we're going to be looked at as one of the best teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere. Like, we're going to be probably top 3 in the AP poll at that point. Probably. And then net will probably jump top 5. And I mean, net will probably jump higher than top 4. Ken Palm and net. And I was looking at the bracket matrix. There's currently a couple brackets that have the Gators of a 1 seed.
Really?
With us. Yep. Our average seeding is 2.19.
Yeah.
And there's 3. Wait, am I looking at the right team? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 brackets that was as a 1 seed.
Interesting.
So to answer this question overall, can the Gators win the SEC? Yes. Will they? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
Too much of a wagon.
I also just think there's too much variance. Like, I think this team could be, like, I could see this team being the team in the SEC that people feel best about going into the tournament, but they don't win the SEC because of happenstance.
Well,
like,
I mean, if Auburn wins the SEC, I think everyone's going to feel the best about Auburn.
I guess it depends. I see what you mean. I guess I'm saying, like, if both teams are 14-4 and it's a tiebreaker thing and one's hotter than the other, I'm just saying, like, I think it's just there's so many good teams. It's hard to care that much about being number 1 when the top 5 are going to be high seeds in the tournament.
Another thing that I saw this stat. Well, I saw 2. Okay, I'll start with this one first. Of what was considered like the top 5 teams in the SEC, the teams in the top 10 of the AP poll, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 5 teams, Florida is the only one who has to play all of the other 4 on the road. Like, we get a home and home with Tennessee, but then we have to play everybody else on the road, including Tennessee, because we play them twice. So we're the only one of those 4. So, I mean, and winning on the road, I mean, we were talking about Neville being maybe one of the best road environment or home environments in all of college basketball. I mean, winning at Bama, winning at Tennessee, winning at Rupp. I mean, it's going to be tough, but they can do it. I don't know if they will, though.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well.
So I'm excited to see how the rest of this basketball season ends up going, hoping for the best. Do you think there's any like little worry that the team like could have like a major fall, like to that 8 seed line or lower?
I mean, I guess if there is, it's literally only because they are just pretty untested. Like, still at this point, like the non-conference schedule wasn't like, I'm not going to call it weak, but it certainly wasn't strong compared to what some of these other teams had to deal with. So, but I don't like, even then, like, even if there's been some mirage, like there's some miraginess there and they're not, as good as a team that would start, should start 13-0, like you would think. I don't see them dropping to be like an 8 seed. Like I don't see how you have the kind of finish that they had like last year, which is what got them an 8 seed. So like I feel like the floor here feels like a 5 or something like that to me. Honestly, it really does.
I'm looking at team rankings, like the odds to make the tournament. Florida is the 2 seed. We're the 6th ranked team. They're given 100% chance to make the tournament.
Wow.
So there is at least that.
Okay.
A 24% chance to get a 1 seed. Auburn, 95% chance to get a 1 seed.
Wow.
That's how dominant this Auburn team has been. The next best is Tennessee at 63. I don't know. I'm not fully sold on Tennessee.
I'm not either.
Because like we saw them almost lose to Illinois, like almost obviously. And then they struggled against. Oh, okay, there we go. They struggled against Virginia in the first half. I wouldn't even say we struggled. They were only up by 1 score. We were up by like 13 points against Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, at halftime. So it's like I should actually go on to this. I put it up. Winning on the road tells you how far you'll go in the tournament. I mean, you know what they always say, defense travels. I mean, now you look at our last tournament game, defense didn't travel. I mean, that's how good our defense was all year, I guess you could say. But they end up putting 100 points and still end up losing that game. So, and we have 3 experienced guards. That's probably the biggest thing you can have in March. Like, unless you're just the best team ever with sophomores who are going to be first-round draft picks. But, I mean, when you compare us to, like, a Duke who has a bunch of young stars like Cooper Flagg, I mean, if you're talking about in March, I mean, you can pick Duke, and I wouldn't tell you you're wrong at all. But you can also look at Florida and be like, oh, I mean, who am I going to trust to have those consistent games over a 6-game period? It's probably Florida. Like, I mean, or you look at the other teams like Tennessee, where they have the elite defense, but if other teams struggle while on offense, but then you have another team that kind of is hot, I can see Tennessee losing there. I mean, and Auburn is just insanely good. I don't know. I mean, what is Auburn's biggest weakness? I mean, probably consistent 3-point shooting.
Yeah, it's hard to find. It's kind of hard to find them though, because like they look very good.
They do. Like if you remember last year, we played them twice. We beat them in Gainesville, dominated by like 20. I think we won by 19, but we were up at like 25.
I was at that game.
Oh,
I was at that
yeah,
game.
Me too.
Yeah,
it was a fun game.
A good environment.
Yeah, it was. But I mean, I don't know if you can trust Auburn's 3-point shooting yet fully. Like of the elite shooting teams, they're probably they can play like it, but I don't know if you trust it yet.
Yeah,
that's probably because the reason they got dominated by us was because they couldn't hit a shot. Like they had opportunities, but it's like they were like that all season, inconsistent. So, I'm excited to see how the rest of the team plays.
I mean, it's just I was just going to add really fun and like exciting, a lot of great games coming up in the next month for basketball. It's going to be interesting to see.
Let's just real quick official pick: Florida, Kentucky. What do you got?
I'll go Florida.
When's the last time you like truly picked Florida to beat Kentucky? Like, I mean,
basketball?
Like fully.
I don't know. I don't like. It's been years, several years, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I already said I like us to beat Kentucky. I think Kentucky's gonna fall off a bit.
Yeah.
They can't guard guards. I mean, especially bigger guards. Like you saw him against Ohio State, Bruce Thornton. He's actually the cousin of Bryce Thornton, Gator safety. If you didn't know that.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, there were some rumors that he might transfer to Florida.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's his cousins here.
Yeah.
But we ended up going with Elijah Martin instead of him. So, or he decided not to. Then we went Elijah. Whatever happened. Kentucky really can't guard guards. I mean, you look back at their physical guards. You look back at their loss to Clemson. They just weren't physical enough to win that game, and that's why Clemson won it. I mean, they got blown out by Ohio State because Bruce Thornton and Meechie Johnson didn't even play in that game against Kentucky. They had another guard though who's like a freshman who went for like 15 points, I think. So Kentucky's biggest downfall is they really only have one elite shooter in what is it, Kobe Barea, or something like that, right?
That sounds right.
I'm double checking real quick. I'm like pretty sure it's Kobe. Yeah, Kobe Brea, not Barea, but Brea with a BR. Whose 3-point percentage is 50%. So he's a really good shooter, but like everyone else, Lamont Butler is shooting 43%, but that's a small rate. He doesn't shoot many. He's kind of like Zion Poland. Where Zion Poland, he would only probably shoot like 2 or 3 a game, and he would make them pretty consistently. But then you have 30%, 36%. It's like Kentucky, they just don't shoot it consistently.
Yeah.
And if they can't shoot it, they're not really going to stay in the games. So I'm also going to pick Florida. I'm not going to, it's hard to say we're going to blow them out, but I think we could win this game like comfortably.
Like 10 to 15 points.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can weather their initial home court surge and keep it close to first half, we'll pull away in the second half. That's kind of how I can see it. I mean, I don't want to bring up refs, but at Rupp and it's Kentucky, that is one thing that if it will be brought up, especially if Florida loses. There's a very good chance that there's going to be some questionable calls. Like, I don't like blaming refs for games.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do it yet, but there probably will be whatever. We'll move on from that. Let's get into one of my favorite segments to possibly do. I did a mid-season superlative list. I probably should have brought those up and saw what I had, but I didn't. But so we're gonna do our end of season superlatives. We have 10 different awards. I'll let you start off. Which one do you want to go to?
Let's lead off with offensive player of the year.
Okay. Okay. Who's your offensive player of the year?
I'm curious how what you feel about this. I have DK.
Ooh, I probably should have put him on here. I respect it though. I mean, why do you go DK?
I mean, I think part of it with DK is that he exceeded my expectations by quite a bit. Like, I think there's an element of that to it. Like, I was expecting quite a bit out of Badger, and Badger had a really good year. And I think Badger was probably the more exciting player responsible for more big plays. But I think DK, Slaughter that's a really good pick.
I wanted to put him here, but it's so tough to put an offensive lineman on here.
Yeah. Honestly, you could have easily talked me into that over DK, but I still do believe everything I'm saying about DK because I think it can't be understated how reliable of a target he was. And I think especially when Lagway came in, you saw Lagway looking for DK. And I think that's really important to have a guy like that for a young quarterback. He's not the fastest, he's not the flashiest player, but he was really reliable. And the offense kind of moved through him in a lot of games this year. I think more games, when we were doing that, the season recap last week, that was my biggest takeaway. It was
consistency.
Wow, DK had a lot of 80, 90 yard games.
Yep. I really wanted to put DK on my awards because he was consistently good throughout the season. But I had to go to the guy besides him. I had to go Elijah Badger. I mean, he had more yards, but Badger also showed up in those big time games. I mean, look at the LSU game. He had the big touchdown pass. The Ole Miss game, the first touchdown pass, he had that one as well. He finished with more yards than DK did. The offensive player of the year is kind of like how you go to the NFL offensive player of the year. MVP is always a QB. But then remember, Cooper Kupp had that insane season. I think he broke the record for receptions or whatever.
I think so.
Yeah. And it was an insane season. And you could have argued for him to be the MVP.
Yeah.
I think Aaron Rodgers got it that year. But they went with Cooper Kupp for offensive player of the year. That's kind of what it felt with Badger. He stepped up in those big moments, really made the plays to win the game, or especially early on in games, got us out ahead in good starts against LSU and Kentucky. I mean, LSU and Ole Miss. So those big plays, I feel do earn you some brownie points for me. And literally broke the dude's ankle, or Yam Banks, the safety for Ole Miss. On that route in the end zone for the touchdown. So I went with Elijah Badger. I think
it's valid pick. Yeah. Totally valid.
So I guess we'll go to defensive player of the year. I'll start off here. I went with Tyreek Sapp. I've always been a huge fan of Tyreek Sapp since he's arrived here. He kind of just has that look of someone who's an intimidating look, like someone you can line up on that D line and edge position.
Yeah.
Should be someone that ends up being a really good player in the NFL. Earlier today, I was looking at 2026 mock drafts. Saw one from like the 27th or 25th of him, or 21st may have been, being a first round draft pick, 14th overall. Like, I really like Tyreek Sapp. He led the team in sacks with 7.5. I think he got screwed of one against Tulane, but 7.5 could have been 8.5 as well. I think next year, if you have that whole defensive line playing really good, like how we did at the end of the year, I think he probably finishes with double-digit sacks next season as well. So you have a really good player going into next season. But, I mean, he had a lot of tackles for loss. He started getting better in run support too, because coming into the year, I was like, okay, he's a good pass rusher, but we see him make mistakes in run support. Down the stretch in the last like 2 games, I think he had like 3 tackles for losses, or tackle for loss. So in the run game, so we're seeing Sapp step up in sacks and the run support, and I'm really excited. It's not confirmed that he's returning, but I think he will return for next season.
Yeah, and that's certainly what like the reporting has led us to
believe.
That's a really good pick. I consider that for sure. And just real quick to address chat, I just want to say, I went out of my way to not do repeats for any of these awards. So if you think I should have picked someone else, like there's a decent chance that person, I have them for something else, and that's why they didn't get this one. But looking at my defensive player, I've got another guy on the defensive line. Actually, I've got Caleb Banks.
Fair, like it's
yeah. Like I mean, I felt that was
first round picks next year.
Yeah, that one kind of felt like a no-brainer to me. Really productive guy for playing on the inside. Third on the team in sacks and TFLs, 4.5 sacks, 7 TFLs. Tied for the team lead in quarterback hurries. Tied for the team lead in forced fumbles with 2. Just a really productive player. A guy that I don't know what this Florida defense is without Caleb Banks, to be honest with you. You know, we talk about how much that defensive line got better throughout the year. And like, I'd not to take anything away from Sapp, who I think played really well, but like to me, Banks is like as responsible for that as anybody else.
He is definitely. So one other interesting thing about Sapp, I believe Caleb Banks was second in PFF's grading for pass rush, and he was like a 78 or something. Tyreek Sapp is first at a 90. Like he's getting pressure even if he wasn't finishing on the sack. But yeah, George Gums. I don't know if he was that good. Like he's good. I think he had 5 sacks, and I think
really good player. Yeah,
I think he could be in contention for it off the edge. I mean, if next year we're talking about Gums, Sapp, and Banks all returning, I mean they're going to be fighting for the sack numbers. I mean, 3 really good players right there. Bridges got a shout out from Rob. If Bridges did what he did in the second half of the season all season, then definitely could have been up there. But it was mostly just that second half surge from him that elevated him there. So I don't think you can you can. I love Bridges. I wish he had another year, but is Sapp coming back? We said that's kind of what we're led to believe.
No reason right now that I think he's not, as well, I guess is how I would say it.
All right, where do you want to go next?
How about freshman?
Let's do it. I'm interested to see you got.
This might be a little controversial, but bear with me on it and just bear with the rest of my awards. I mean, not that controversial. I got Jaden Baugh.
Okay.
I mean, I think you could, you do too. I mean, okay. Like, I think I came very close to picking him as offensive player of the year, to be quite honest.
Oh, wow.
He was in my consideration. I mean, I think, the numbers like for a running back, not like blowing you away, but he, if he had been seeing the role the entire season that he saw down the stretch,
he didn't start until game 6.
Yeah, he played in 13, but it's only I think only started the last like 5 or 6. Yeah. So I mean, 673 yards on the year, 7 rushing touchdowns. Like, I think, obviously, your people are going to say DJ Lagway, and I get it. I'm not going to argue with you if you say DJ Lagway. I just think that in terms of like Baugh was the more productive of the two, and probably was the more impactful in the sense that he contributed the most throughout the season.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I also have Baugh.
Yeah.
Like, he had that 100-yard, 5-touchdown game, tied the record.
Mhm.
That's more than like Emmitt Smith or even Fred Taylor ever had. Did
Yeah.
you see the schedule reveal video they did where they had the 3 or 4
Yeah.
freshmen and they
Mhm.
had ball talking to Fred Taylor, I think?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, they talked about that on there. Yeah, I also didn't want to repeat rewards too much. So I mean, it might spoil another pick later on. We might
Yeah.
have the same answer for one of them.
You
But
probably do.
yeah. What he said, Lagway a game changer. But Ball 600 yards it was and 10 touchdowns. I mean, 5 touchdowns in one game against Kentucky.
Yeah.
And we're talking about
Almost
I think
700 yards from Baugh. He had like
almost
673.
7. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know he only had like 2 carries against Tech or against Miami, couple against
Mhm.
A&M. Once Montreal got hurt, that's when we started seeing a lot more Ball. And man,
Mhm.
I'm so excited to see him next year. Rob Lagway, let's run him out of town,
Yeah.
guys. Yeah,
He's not
Lagway's
the
not good
freshman
enough.
of the year.
No.
So get him out of here.
But yeah, Ball his explosiveness. I'm gonna talk about another running back later on here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually. Okay, no. Yeah, but I'm gonna talk about another running back
Mhm.
later on in the show. Let's make sure I didn't have something else.
Yeah.
But I think Ball, as a freshman running back, doing what he did, maybe the best freshman running back in the SEC. I think Caden Durham was it on the SEC freshman list. But I mean, Ball did those stats without starting for half the season. And then when he did,
Mhm.
he didn't start the FSU game or the Tulane,
Yeah.
or he did start Tulane game, sorry. So he only had like 5 starts on the season. And in
Mhm.
like 3 of those games that he didn't start, very minimal snaps.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to see him.
Yeah.
Let
Also a guy who wasn't like super highly recruited. I mean, he was, but like not like highly rated. Not necessarily a guy that everyone thought would be like an immediate impact player in the SEC.
I know Nick Saban really wanted him. I mean, Saban ended up retiring.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
But DJ is going to get a statue and a championship trophy or 2. Hope so. He's earning it already. God bless. LJ McCray too, all those studs on defense and all the receivers and running backs. Yeah, there's a lot of good freshmen. This wasn't, I mean, it was pretty easy because like some of the guys just stood out, but there's some also other really good freshmen. And
Yeah.
I didn't include redshirt freshmen. I assume you didn't as well. Because we just did freshman of the year, not defense. Okay, never mind. Yeah. Let's go into like the best program guy. Maybe not someone who gets too many snaps.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who's been with the program for a couple years. Maybe in the locker room, they're a great culture guy. Really, I was between 2.
We might have the same one here.
I was between Derek Wingo and Jaquavian Frazier's. And Jamarcus Weston, 3. I think that might be where you're going, but
no, I actually wasn't. No, none of those 3 guys. I have mine's different.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of get a guy that you don't really see play. I ended up going Derek Wingo because he is someone we saw get good playing time, in 2022. Mm-hmm. Like, even if he wasn't really that good, we saw him get good playing time. But he ended up staying with the team throughout his entire career, is now declared for the draft. But he's someone stayed in that linebacker room when he got young. He didn't transfer. Something you see players do all the time. Could have gone to a lower level and been a good player. But as I said here, probably got a degree at UF. I mean, I think that's like the ultimate program guy. Someone who was a top 100 rated recruit. I think he was like 63rd or something. So it's someone who easily could have transferred, and you wouldn't really complain. I mean, can't really blame him either. So I said go Wingo.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Guy that's been around for a while, put a lot of hard work into the team.
Is this where you went?
Yeah. No, that's not my pick, but that is a really good one. I was going to mention that because Mertz is a really good pick there. So my pick, I'll be honest, there's probably some recency bias going on here. But I wanted to do it because it's fun. My pick is Des Watson.
Oh, okay. That's a good pick.
Yeah, I got Des Watson. The guy like played a lot of key snaps for the Gators this year. Despite kind of not getting the discussion that a lot of those other guys on the defensive line got, he plays like he doesn't play insignificant snaps.
No,
he's in the mix. Pretty solid contributor.
He's getting over 20 snaps a game.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of just went with someone who doesn't really play. Like, it's more of someone in the behind the scenes locker room. That's kind of how I went with it. But I definitely see Des Watson. But he was someone who's getting like 20 snaps a game. The second string nose tackle to Cam Jackson, started against Tulane, obviously. I mean, that's a good pick. Des Watson, maybe one of the fan favorites of all time.
Yeah, just responsible for a lot of really fun moments, a lot of fun
Mhm.
moments and memories. Like like we said this, I think on the show last week, but like most memorable rotational player ever.
Yep. It's almost what we named this, but we decided not to.
Yeah.
Program guy. All right. Where do you want to go next?
How about offensive and defensive transfers?
Okay, let's do it. Where do you want to start?
I'll lead off the offensive. And
Okay.
it's kind of these are could have been slotted either way. I went with Badger here.
Yeah.
For best offensive transfer. And like again, could have made the argument for Badger over DK for offensive player of the year. They were both really good, both really impactful players. I think what I will say for Badger is, like I kind of said, DK was the more reliable, consistent target, but Badger was the recipient of a lot of big plays. And I think we saw that's when the offense was at its best, was when Lagway was looking to get the ball downfield. And a lot of times that was to Badger. So really great player, nice addition. I know he had some injuries earlier in his career, so I'm glad for him that he was able to end it on a high note. And will probably get himself picked, if not day 2, like early day 3.
Yeah. Yeah, probably will go that early. So I kind of want to switch it because I kind of don't want to repeat. I put Badger. I mean, I put him for both of them.
Yeah.
For both offensive player and sorry, one sec. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I had them both for offensive transfer. Because I mean, it kind of just feels like it should be because best offensive player, and if it's a transfer, he's still the best offensive player.
Yeah.
But try not to repeat. I will say DK. I already talked about Badger. But yeah, DK, it was always that consistent guy, especially when Mertz got hurt. You saw Lagway coming against Tennessee. Who caught the touchdown pass to send us to overtime? It was DK. I mean, look at the bowl game. We were struggling a bit offensively. And who's the one who ends up leading nearly 100 yards in receiving? It is Chimere DK. Someone that not many people expected to end up being that good of a player probably. And ends up being that close in yards to Badger. Probably not going to have the same giraffe status as Badger is, but he is someone I hope gets a shot and takes the best of it.
Yeah.
So
both those guys would have loved to have them for another year. Was worried about the receiver room coming into the season, and it really wasn't much of a problem at all.
The depth was though when Badger.
Yeah, depth was a problem. Sure. Yeah. But at the top end, it was fine.
Yep, right here. DK or Badger can go either way.
Yep. 100%.
Lagway is going to have a ton of guys to throw to next year. And all we have to do is wait patiently 9 months for football to start again.
It's tough.
Man, brutal. At least we got basketball.
Yep.
We'll go to defensive transfer of the year. It was really between two guys. I wasn't including Banks, who was technically transferred, but transferred in
transfers that arrived this year.
Yeah. So I was between two guys, George Gums and Jaquez Bridges.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to go with Bridges.
I did too.
Okay, yeah. I decided to go with Bridges because that DB room really took the injury bugs insanely deep. I mean, you're talking about the top 3 corners getting injured. Dijon Johnson comes in at corner. I mean, Cormani McLean just was not ready yet. Yeah. And you have a guy who's a safety in Jaquez Bridges who near the midseason mark, he was playing really good at safety. So it's someone you really don't want to have to move away from safety, but you end up having to. So he ends up going to corner and probably played better at corner than he did at safety. I mean, you got to give him a ton of credit for switching positions and playing at I don't know if you would say elite level, but a really good level. And kind of just, if you take away Bridges, the secondary is probably a lot worse. If you take away Gums, they have enough talent. They can probably figure out something to get close to him. So I'm going to go with Bridges there. And Gums, he could win awards next year, but, I decided to go with Bridges here.
Yeah, I agree with the pick. A guy that I'll be honest, I didn't really expect a ton out of this year. And he didn't have a massive role early on, but like you said, with the injuries, he really stepped up and not only stepped up to be a guy you can trust to put on the field, but was probably by the end of the season, maybe the most reliable guy playing in the secondary. Of the guys playing by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a great pick. I think Florida would absolutely kill to have Bridges on the team again next year.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Would be a really nice piece to have. He did a lot for his stock. I hope he can make a career, you make it to the NFL and do something, because he had a really nice close to the year.
If Castell does the same thing he did in 24, he'll lose his job at 25. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
We have so many bodies in the safety room. I mean, we have some young, talented guys. Still might take I think we're still looking at the UAB safety, the transfer portal. We'll see what we do there, but yeah, probably. I mean, if he does, it's going to be Greg Smith or a freshman replacing him. So it's who goes in that spot. Who knows? But hopefully he steps up next year. Maybe he's the most improved, which in transition, most improved player of the year. Right? I didn't skip anything. Yeah. Most improved player would go there. Really, there was two guys here. One of them, I ended up not picking one of them because he entered the transfer portal. So I'm not going to pick him. I went with Damian George.
I also went with Damian George.
I don't know how much you consider this improvement because he was a tackle, moved from right tackle to right guard. So it's like, but he went from horrific right tackle to a good right guard. I'm really excited to see him have another year of development at that guard spot. Maybe be someone who can get drafted. He was a 4-star coming out of high school, has talent there. Maybe he improves a little bit more to that spot to where maybe he's a first-team All-SEC or All-SEC team player. So I had to go with Damian George because the other option was Jack Pyburn. And that probably would have been my option if he hadn't entered the transfer portal. But, you should have saw some things I said about Pyburn before that Mississippi State game. Or before even the second quarter of that Mississippi State game. Yeah, but I decided to go George because he's sticking with us. Program guy at this point, going to year 3. So I'm excited to see him next year.
Yeah. I think that's a good point you make about Damian George. Like, I don't know how fair it is to call it improvement when you're just moving from a position that you're not supposed to be playing naturally to the one that you are. I don't know if that's getting better or just playing in the right position. But we knew that last year he was playing out of position.
We don't support LSU players here.
Yeah, I didn't know we had LSU fans in the chat. No, I'm just kidding. No, but
I'm watching out for your pick. You kind of made a look when I said not Pyburn.
Me?
Yeah.
My pick is Damian George.
Okay. You also picked George. Great.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I also picked Damian George. No, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think he, ultimately, like you said, switching position or, moving positions from tackle to guard definitely fitted him a lot better. But, ultimately a guy that was a straight up liability to have on the field last year and has gone from that to being a guy that we're very excited to have back next year. Now, there's competition. I'm not even saying it's guaranteed he's your starting right guard next year, but I don't think either of us are concerned if the week 1 depth chart comes out and it's Damian George at right
Not
guard.
at all.
I think, so.
I can't remember who it was in the interview, a defensive lineman. They were interviewing who's the toughest one-on-one matchup in practice. Roderick Kearney, who's someone that could be competing. I don't think they will go with Kearney because I think George has solidified himself in games and everything. But Kearney was the pick for the toughest guy to go on. We have some young guys there. Also, Bryce Levette, who started the FSU and at right guard game and then started the bowl game at right tackle. But, you have young guys pushing for those jobs, which hopefully also makes them better. But yeah, I'm not going to be upset at all when I see Damian George if we have a depth chart next year on that depth chart. So what, we got 2 awards left? Breakout and MVP?
Yep. Breakout and MVP. So I guess let's hit breakout.
All right, yeah, I'll let you hit it first to breakout.
Wait, no, we missed underrated too, didn't we?
We did, yeah. So underrated. What do you? No, we just. Oh yeah. Okay, we'll do most underrated next. You go first.
Yeah. I have Jane Robinson here.
Ooh, I like that pick.
Yeah, a guy that even like us, I think, are kind of guilty of it. Like, not really talking about when we talk about the pieces you've got on defense. We didn't actually. We should have done that. We could probably do that off the top of our head here.
Yeah. We'll finish under.
Yeah, we can get to that in a second. But yeah, Jane Robinson, I think we were guilty of it too. Just not really talking about him when we talked about the improvement on the defense and the guys that were contributing. But he was very productive this year. 3.5 sacks, 52 total tackles. Yeah, I know, man. It kind of blew my mind when I was looking at the numbers. he had a very nice year. He was a reliable player in that rotation. And I think, just one of the just most unsung heroes of this entire football team. And I also thought, that was also probably the other one I was considering, by the way, Jacoby Jackson. That was a good pick.
That's a fair thing to go. Jay Robinson, I love that pick. Yeah. I mean, Shamar James declared for the NFL draft. It's a thing. I mean, I'm glad Shamar didn't leave for the NFL because I love rooting for Shamar. But there's so many young, talented linebackers that probably might be better than him. Mm-hmm. I mean, I want Shamar to succeed, and I would not have complained if he returned. Would have complained if he transferred to somewhere else because, you're a Gator through and through. But Jaden Robinson, 50 tackles. I didn't realize he had over 50 tackles this year.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, still the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad he did. My most underrated, Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. Like, if we would have done an award
that's a good pick.
If we would have done an award for best offensive lineman, we probably would have said Slaughter easily. Yeah. But then who would have number 2 been?
Probably, I mean, either him or like Barber, probably, right?
And I think we probably would have gone Barber. I mean, I feel like we didn't hear much about Crenshaw-Dixon. I mean, you may have even gone George over Crenshaw-Dixon, but he may have been better than both of them. I mean, transfer from San Diego State. We had a really big ick, when they decided to start weights over him week 1. Yeah. Don't know if that was like an injury thing, playbook thing, or if they just didn't know Crenshaw-Dixon was way better than Waits was. But, he doesn't start the season, and the offensive line looks atrocious week 1. So it's like, oh, okay. The offensive line, Dixon probably sucks. And then he starts the rest of the season, and he actually plays really well, maybe the second best offensive lineman on the team. And I feel like he didn't really get talked about enough. And I wonder how we do replenish his spot. I think we get a right tackle who maybe he's not improving or maybe proven as a good guy, but not a great tackle, and let those young guys compete for that spot. But I had to give him the shout out. We see why Shamar is the best linebacker in the room in the Tulane game. 5 solo tackles, the most of any player, played very little. I mean, Tulane didn't run many plays. So I don't know how you really count that. I mean,
I'm not sure I'd agree about Shamar as the best in the linebacker room.
Yeah,
necessarily.
I want Shamar to succeed in the NFL.
Oh yeah, good player.
The athletic plays from Jaden Robinson, Miles Graham, Aaron Childs. So it's Shamar in pass coverage has work to do. Well, I think Miles Graham, Childs, Robinson, they're more athletic to where they're just better in pass, and we're seeing and developing the run defense as well. So special teams player of the year. When it comes to mine, I really have 2 players. Punt returner Chimere Dike. He had some really crucial punt returns early on in mid-season. But I'm going to have to go Trey Smack. I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer. I assume you're going there too.
Yeah. Smack's really good. And for all the kicking issues we had for a few years before he took over, he's really
since McPherson left after the 2020 season. 2020. Rocco. I mean, I'm not going to pick a long snapper. Sorry. Unless the rest of the special teams unit just absolutely sucks. I'm not picking
I don't know how to evaluate a long snapper if the snap's not going over their heads. As long as it's a good snap, I don't know what makes
if it was did we have any bad snaps this year?
Not that I can remember off the top. Did we have any? We didn't have any missed kicks due to bad process, did we?
I can't think of any. There's the one against Tennessee, or was it Georgia?
But that was the fire. But snap hold kick that. We didn't have issues there, did we this year?
I don't
on a field
think
goal?
so.
Yeah,
not to my knowledge. And I mean, Smack, he didn't miss a field goal since the Georgia game, which that's not even a missed field goal. When was his last missed field goal?
That's a good question.
Not Tennessee. Was it the game before Tennessee, UCF? Or Texas? I don't even remember.
He had a miss against Texas.
Okay. I don't remember that at all.
I don't
but
either.
Still, he hit 3 straight 50-yard field goals in that stretch of LSU and Ole Miss. And at the back half of the season, like everyone else, I thought they
maybe
screwed
they
up the
did. Maybe
snap.
that one was a screwed up snap. Okay, I
So,
gotta be honest. That Texas game kind of went out of my memory like as soon as we
yeah.
finished talking about it.
Yeah, I was not remembering anything about that. Yeah. So I feel like it's kind of no-brainer for Smack because of how good and how many 50-yard field goals he hit this year. And didn't miss an extra point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So good kicker to have going into next year.
So that brings us to breakout now.
Yeah, breakout. I'll let you start it off.
Yeah. So this was a guy I was considering for best defensive transfer. You were too. I put him here instead. I put George Gums.
Yep. That's a good pick.
Which did you do that or do you have something different?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I mean Gums, to me fits the definition of breakout player like perfectly. A guy that no one not heralded at all in the transfer class. No one thought was going to come in and make a major impact this season, and was about as impactful as anyone on the defense.
Yep.
And he's coming back. I think a guy that's going to continue to get better, but second on the team in sacks and TFLs with 5 sacks, 8 TFLs, like.
Wow.
A lot of pressure on the quarterback. Just a disruptive player off the edge.
Yeah.
And, maybe not like a guy that's elite in the sense that he's going to be like a day 1 or 2 draft pick, but a guy that makes an impact when he gets out on the field.
Yeah, I don't blame you off for that.
I don't blame you either.
No. So I was considering Gums. I actually had Gums second. I probably should have picked Gums, to be honest. I went with Jacoby Jackson. I think this was more surprising to me than Gums was. Because I think that the running back room, we all knew Montrell was the guy. And then I think there was some hype for Trayon Webb. We're kind of underrating Trayon Webb here a little bit too for next season. We'll see what happens with him. And then there was Kadeem Daniels, who a lot of people had hyped for. We saw a Ball in the spring game who looked phenomenal. That everyone kind of just forgot a bit about Jacoby Jackson. JUCO transfer. Don't really think any of us expect him to have over 500 yards and double-digit touchdowns this year. So, breakout player. Gums isn't a bad pick at all. Like, he's finished second on my list. But I went with Jackson because a bit more underrated as well.
Yeah.
So I kind of combined the two a bit for Jacoby.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see this running back rotation next year. Miles Graham for breakout. We didn't see enough.
I don't think he was productive enough. Yeah, he didn't do quite enough. He was good, like promising player, no doubt. I just don't know if he did enough to earn breakout player.
Yeah, I agree there. Maybe next year. What would you consider? We all have high hopes for Miles Graham. So it's like, even if he has a good season, I don't know if you consider that breakout. Would he have to be like all SEC for it to be a breakout?
Not necessarily. I think if he takes that starting job and becomes like one of the better players on the defense, I'd call that a breakout. And as a true sophomore, and I'd probably call that a breakout performance.
Yeah, we might see a lot of young guys break out next year. It could be a tougher battle. But then we're not free anything, right? Last MVP?
No, I think we're good.
I'm 99% sure we have the same guy here.
We
went with the definition of MVP, like most valuable player. You take this guy off the team, and our record 3 games worse, probably. Taylor Spears, no, it's of course DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway, not just his on-field play with him adding the deep ball early on, like Kentucky and a little bit against Tennessee with his mobility, and Georgia. Florida Gators quarterback university.
Yep.
Spamming it
That's
in chat.
right.
Yeah.
That's
MVP
right.
is DJ Lagway. There's so much to say about him. For him only being a freshman is just insane for how well he played against maybe the best defense in the country in Ole Miss. The best front 7 in the country in Ole Miss for sure. Only getting sacked 4 times maybe. And with his hurt hamstring too. Like the plays he was making, that Ole Miss game, let's go back to there on that first touchdown drives where he has a guy in his face trying to sack him and he throws it out to Frazier's. Later in that same drive, he has 2 guys right there about to tackle him and he just tosses it down to Badger. Check down, where people say he couldn't check down, by the way, going into that game. But he hit the check downs. He hits a big pass to DK later on. Hits a big pass to Badger for touchdowns. Look at the LSU. Look at the LSU game. He also broke out some sacks and stuff that most quarterbacks like Graham Mertz, they would have gotten sacked there. Hit some deep balls. Look at the FSU game where Darrell Jackson literally is hugging him and somehow he breaks out that sack and gets a beautiful throw to DK on the sideline to get the first down. That's like maybe the most underrated part of that play, that he throws it to where only DK can get it and where he stays in bounds.
Yeah.
I mean, and kind of leads him upfield a bit too to help with that not going out of bounds. I mean, Lagway is being considered for the Heisman next year already. He's probably top 10 in MVP odds, where we only see him start and finish 6 games. I mean, he just has that it factor.
Yeah.
Like, if we make the playoffs next year, everyone's going to say it's because of Lagway. And it probably is. I mean, he's just that good. And he's a great team leader. You see him before every game, he's greeting everybody out the locker room. Maybe most underrated aspect of his game.
Yeah, to me, I think like the thing with Lagway, because I don't want to say like I think it's inaccurate to say he like didn't look like a freshman, because there were moments where he certainly did, decisions that he made where he did, but like at the same time, there were a lot of things he did that were not freshman like. He showed a lot of anticipation when throwing the ball, leading guys, finding open guys on big plays. I think he had a pretty good job sensing pressure, like you talked about. And moving around despite kind of battling some injuries down the stretch, like all that, plus the fact that, I mean, the DJ Lagway effect is real. I mean, something about him taking over the team as quarterback, like that sparked the offense, that sparked the entire team in those games down the stretch. And I think you're seeing it, and he had a bad hamstring, and you're seeing that off the field too, by the way. Like, I think the momentum that is happening off the field, a lot of that is because of DJ Lagway, because people want to come play with DJ Lagway. They know DJ Lagway's got 2 more years here, probably, if things work out. I mean, two more years if things work out.
Yep.
So,
maybe it's lucky
like,
3.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we're lucky if it's 3. You know what I mean? I think we'd be better.
Well, I'm saying he ends up being still elite and decides to come back for a senior season.
Yeah, well, I guess. But I guess
maybe we go back to back, and he's like, let's
I took it to mean like if it's 3, that means something bad happened.
No.
Either with his development or like health or something. But yeah, I think just when you look at everything that DJ Lagway has brought to the table, it's everything that you hope for when you sign the number 1 quarterback in America, 5-star guy. Like it is
Gator
fundamentally. Yeah, it's fundamentally altered the trajectory of the program. And he did that in 6 games, right? 6 games as a starter?
Started 7, but got injured in the Georgia game.
Okay,
Started and finished 6.
So yeah, in 7 games, he's fundamentally changed the trajectory of this football program, like regardless of what happens with Billy Napier. And I think that speaks for itself in terms of the MVP.
Dear baby Jesus, please tell me we are getting Joe Brady as offensive coordinator for next year. Even just as like
coaching my Jags next year, buddy.
Is he going to be coaching our Jags?
I don't know. Maybe
Ben
Liam
Johnson
Cohen.
got us. That'd be interesting.
I'd love Ben Johnson, but I just don't know if he'll come here.
I mean, you got to see. Okay, whatever. But yeah, Lagway, easy MVP. I didn't even have to think about it. I mean, my biggest thinking was, okay, do I also put him for best freshman? Do I put him for offensive player of the year?
Yeah.
That's where the thinking was. I'm like, MVP, easily Lagway. Probably, if everything goes right, MVP next year. I mean, maybe Caleb Banks or Tyreek Sapp. I mean, we haven't had 2 defensive linemen be like first-round draft picks since like the 90s. I mean, we haven't had a defensive line first-round draft pick since Dante Fowler. So... Oh, no, wow. Taven Bryant.
Oh, yeah, Taven. Yeah, Taven.
But how much of that was because of what he did?
How long has it been since we had one that wasn't drafted by the Jags? That's what I want to know.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, Sharif Floyd?
Yeah, probably Sharif Floyd.
What was that, 2011?
12 or 13, I think.
12 or 13.
Yeah.
It's been over 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe even over 12. So it's going to be nice. I mean, I'm really hoping Billy has this thing turned around. And I'm hoping when we're going to do preseason superlatives in months from now, obviously. Yeah. I'm interested to see if some of these names that we have are enough repeats on here. I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. There's a transfer portal in April. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's spring practice. it's like, do you give the guy a chance to see where after spring practice where they are on the depth chart?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I suspect we're gonna have a running back transfer after spring.
Yeah.
Like whether it's Webb or Daniels or even Jacoby Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I do think someone will end up transferring, but it also works for us. Like if we see, we still need a nose tackle, or if we see, we still need a corner or safety. We did offer a safety from Washington State a couple days ago. I saw you also got
I
an
thought
offer.
it was a corner. He's a safety. I thought it was a corner. Okay.
I said corner. I thought I said corner.
I thought you said safety, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, maybe I did. Yeah, he's a corner. Pretty good player. Not a star. I mean, like, not like star position, but he's not like a star corner, like a star. So he's a good player who's going to compete. And we saw that depth. I mean, Devin Moore, if he can stay healthy, is a good corner. Like, how much do you trust Devin Moore to stay healthy at this point? That's the big deal there. So he'd be good for depth. And I think you got to trust Will Harris a bit to develop his guys and hope they don't get hurt again and again and again. So there's that. I would just like to throw in God bless Dallas Wilson. It happened after we went off air. I kept my Twitter open because I was waiting because it could have happened at any time. But if we would have went live at our normal time on last Sunday, it would have happened during the live stream.
Yeah.
So, that's why we got to be careful, and posted the video a little early, but, it didn't backfire on us at least.
It all worked out.
Yeah, it all worked out in the end. Well, maybe not the end, but we'll see if it works out at the end. Like I said, one or two of those running backs will transfer in spring, God willing. Those freshman running backs are a problem. Chad Gasper is a preferred walk-on, so I will say that. Waltez Clark and Byron Lewis. I don't think. Neither of them will transfer, probably, unless something crazy happens. But
it's probably Webb or Daniels, maybe Jacoby. Maybe Jacoby.
Like, I think Ball's guaranteed starter next year. So it's probably going to be one of Webb or Jacoby who doesn't get that second string job. I mean, we saw Webb when he tweeted like he loves UF and everything, but we saw like guys like Derek Wingo stay, or Marcus or Jaquavian Frazier's, who were 4-star recruits, end up staying even though they didn't play much. So maybe that Billy Napier culture is just so good. Yeah. Ooh, maybe we do a hot take show, and I don't think so. I
kind of don't either. Like, I just don't see. Like, I'm not even like saying this to criticize them. I just don't know if, barring injury, the opportunities are going to be there.
We all thought Austin Turner would be a game changer, but injuries took that away. Yeah, that's why. Hey, preseason is preseason, or postseason even. Like, it's all predictive. I mean, that number 1 ranked transfer, John Matera, Oklahoma, could not work out. I mean, there's no really guarantees in anything. What did you think of Cam Ward sitting the entire second half of that Miami Iowa State Pop-Tart Bowl game?
I mean, like, it's a bad look, but it's funny because it's Miami, but I also do think people kind of blew that out of proportion a little bit.
Probably.
I mean, Malik Neighbors did the exact same thing last year. He played like 3 snaps in LSU's bowl game to break the receiving yardage record, and then sat the rest of the game. Like, I don't know. It's like, would have been better if he opted out of the game. And like, maybe your answer to that is yes. And if so, then okay. I'm not sure I agree, but I get it at least.
I think it's a bit different when you're the quarterback, though. Because like, you're the team, you're supposed to be the team leader. That's kind of where I see a little bit of a difference there.
For what it's worth, they kind of put out that the plan was to play Emory in the second half. I don't know if that's damage control or if that's real, but I did see one of the 247 writers report that the plan all along was to play Emory in the second half. Again, maybe that's damage control, and they did,
If Emory Williams is the quarterback for Miami next year, I mean, we might as well chalk that off as a free win in Coral Gables, right?
Well, no, because that is not in Coral Gables. The stadium's not in Coral Gables, but yes,
Miami.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got reversed.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Emory Williams, what, 2 for 6 or something like that in an intercept, or 2 for 8, 6 yards, like an interception against the Iowa State defense. That's not that good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if our defense translate into next season like it did this season, Miami isn't scoring over 20 points on us. And if that Miami defense doesn't improve a lot, we're at least scoring 30 points on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's too early. Maybe next week we'll do our way too early season predictions, but we'll see what other news there is. But yeah, that's on the coach. That's a culture. You saw the Miami players pushing each other.
Yeah, I did. That was not a great look.
And apparently there's a rumor there was a fight in the locker room. I haven't seen that's a rumor. I haven't seen anyone break it like on Twitter, but that's a rumor I've heard. Yeah, apparently the Miami fans were in Twitter rooms, or what are they called?
Yeah, I saw it. Spaces.
Spaces, that's right.
Yeah, I saw a couple of those. It was rough.
I don't know, just like the way things have changed in a 4-month period from, I mean, you had Mario Cristobal saying, when you look at the trajectory of our program versus the others of other in-state programs, ours is way better. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I feel like it's Florida now that's the biggest trajectory, and it's by a lot. Like, I know Miami just won 10 games.
Yeah.
But their recruiting class is like 20 points worse than ours.
Yeah.
They ended the season 1-3. And the QB, who currently is projected to be a starter, does not look good. And he's in his 4th year of college football, 3rd year of college football now?
Third, I think.
The Miami players fought on the field. Yeah, like, I don't know how you consider it a fight, but
yeah,
there was some pushing and shoving.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not what I meant to hit. Whoops. Miami talked so much trash when they came into the ACC, saying they're going to own the ACC, and they haven't even won it.
Haven't even been to an ACC championship game.
That's honestly sad, man.
Yeah.
It's so hilarious. I can't stop laughing at Miami. I spend more time on Miami channels than I do Florida channels. See, I try to not go on Miami channels because they can obviously just go and say 41-17.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we really can't. We can fight back, but like, the best proof is like actual examples of what happened, not predictive proof. Because we can't say, "Oh, we beat you now." It's like, okay. People also said that Bama would beat Oklahoma, or Bama would beat Vandy. You know, it's like you can't really predict. You gotta have actual proof out there. This team sucks, and that's what started it. That would be funny, but all right. Do you have anything else you want to say for this show? Kind of a slow week of news. I think in the next 2 weeks we'll probably have more transfer news. Coaching staff changes will be imminent, so it will definitely be more exciting in that perspective, like the actual team, what they're doing and the program is doing. So do you have anything you want to finalize with here?
No, I mean, we're kind of at the point where, not a lot going on in terms of stuff to talk about for next year's team, just kind of taking the opportunity to look back. It was a fun conclusion to the year for sure. And I appreciate you guys for listening. I hope you guys all had a wonderful Christmas and have a nice New Year.
Yeah, I mean, I hope everyone had a great Christmas, and we will see you next week at 7:00 on Sunday as well. Hope there's more news, and as always, go Gators.